Fire Radio.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, a very, very special guest. The gentleman that was introduced to me through an email from somebody that listens to the show. And he just, it was a message in a show that connected and resonated. And next thing you know, here pops up Deputy Chief Kevin Quinn out of Rhode Island. Sir, thank you for joining me tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Jeremy, to be on the National Fire Radio podcast. It's definitely a pleasure.
So this is really cool for me. I want to share a couple things with you. You and I have had we had a nice little conversation before we hit record tonight, the little pregame here, and we spoke on the phone earlier today. The reason why and how you found your way to me is through Assistant Chief Christopher Koretsky. Did I say that right? Koretsky?
Yes.
And he was listening to an episode I did with Chief Kernan out of Berlin Township, New Jersey, a while back on the podcast, and we were talking about the volunteer fire service, the difference between recruitment and retention. I believe firmly that they don't belong in the same sentence. They're two very different subject matters in the fire service. And so we were chatting about that, and the National Volunteer Fire Council came up, and I made some comments about how I didn't know anything about the organization, being a 30-year volunteer firefighter myself, and I said there has to be people out there that can share information with us because we're looking for the playbook. We have volunteer fire companies all over the country. Some are doing incredibly well, and many are struggling and holding it together, and I mean barely holding it together. And what I'm thinking is today, in this day and age where communication is better than it's ever been before, or at least the opportunity to communicate is better than it's ever been before, we need to do a better job at sharing the tips, tricks, and hacks, as I like to talk in the apparatus industry, of how people are doing it in different parts of the country. And if there are success stories, where can we find them? And where can I take those success stories, those programs, those ideas, that forward thinking, that proactive stance that many fire departments do have? Where can I get that information and then apply it to my hometown? And so that led to an email from the assistant chief, and he passed along your name. 49 years, or going on 49 years in the fire service, super active on many boards and organizations, but you are retired as a deputy chief out of the Union Fire District in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. The National Volunteer Fire Council as an immediate past chairman. You serve on several boards, distinctions. You've been around the block a few times, Chief. We're going to answer every single question there is tonight, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's time to set the record straight. You know, Jeremy, I guess my first question is, are you a member of the NVFC?
Well, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
So let me just point out that the cost to be a member for the next 2.5 weeks is $21 a year.
Okay, I'll sign up tonight.
It does. We have an increase. We haven't had an increase in a while, but it's going to $24 a year. So number one is membership in the NVFC, and we're going to talk about the benefits. But I want to go back to what you said about recruitment and retention first.
Let's do it.
Because we're talking about the fire service tonight, but primarily focusing in on the volunteer fire service.
Yes, sir.
So recruitment, retention, separate, completely separate. They should be treated separately. And I always say, if you have good retention, you never have a recruitment problem.
I agree with you 100%.
And there's a third R in the volunteer fire service, besides recruitment and retention, and that is replacement. Because of the age difference and the aging population of volunteer firefighters. You talked about the struggles and the challenges. We have a huge age differential on the high end. So you're in 30 plus years, I'm in 49 years. You know, we need to replace folks like me for sure, and you in a few years. So it's a recruitment, retention, and replacement for the volunteer fire service. So we have to get creative. We have to do things differently. We have to change the model that we, you know, if we go back in time, as your dad started. I think your grandfather was a volunteer as well. That generational piece. The volunteer fire station in around the country, which does represent 65% of all firefighters are volunteers.
Right.
But that was the hub of the community.
That's correct.
Those departments that were those towns that were volunteer, the hub of the community. You never, as a fire chief, your grandfather, your father, they did not have to market. They did not. They had folks hanging around the station. They were waiting to get in, and there was never an issue. So today, in modern times, we have to market. And a fire chief probably doesn't have the skill sets to market their fire service, their department. So they have to be able to tap into that generational skill sets, those that use social platforms and able to boost ads on Facebook and use the analytics. I don't expect a fire chief to do that, but I expect a fire chief today to make connections with those people that can help his department market that. Number one, we are a volunteer fire department, and number two, we are seeking quality candidates. So we have to market what we do best. The operations, wherever I go, and I too have had the greatest opportunity to travel not only the United States but the world through the fire service because of my positioning. But every one of them does fire really well in their community. They respond well. They can take care of their mission. But when it comes to growing their department and keeping up with technologies and training and all the other new aspects that we've seen in your 30 years and my 49 years, that's where the differences lie. Chiefs today, leadership in fire departments in the volunteer service have to change their model. And we'll talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's go all in on that, because that's a really great way to start here, right? I think something you said that really stands out to me, and I agree with it, and I've spoken about it, is retention. Right. Retaining the people that we have, promoting the people we have, maximizing their efforts and abilities while protecting and being conscious of their time commitments and their other aspects of life. We have to find that balance, right? We have to encourage and try to get the most out of our members. But on the back side of that, we have to be super cognizant of every other influencing factor that's involved in their life, no?
Yeah, there's a lot of competition in their lives. There's a lot of balance in their lives. There's a lot of balls that they're juggling in their lives. But number one, the true meaning of success is to value that volunteer, to appreciate their time. And that has to be shown simply with a handshake or a pat on the back or a welcoming them to the department, because a new member coming in, those first impressions are critical. I want to tell you a little bit about my district. We have 8 stations, and we have a chief officer and 4 deputies, and we run with, there's really about 68 active firefighters. There's probably 140 on our books on the 8 stations, which is typical of many places. A certain percentage of the folks are doing all that work.
That's right.
But we have our own Class A burn building in town. Our population is 31,000 people, but we have our own training facility. We are a breeding ground for career firefighters.
I love that.
We go through 1403 live burns twice a week, every week, except for when the cold weather in Rhode Island sits in. We shut down the burn building. So we are live fire specialists. Our officers, our lieutenants and captains, are the best of the best in the state of Rhode Island, and they get hired by career departments throughout Rhode Island, throughout the Northeast. We've got many members that are in FDNY because we do fire right. We train progressively. On our sleeve, on my patch, which you probably can't read, is safety always. We're all about safety, communications, and teamwork. But we do a lot of live fire training. You talk about crawling on the belly. I've heard some of your podcasts and doing things right and being better firefighters. We have some of the best that come out of our ranks and move on to other departments and advance. In fact, right now in our department, 4 out of 5 of our chief officers started out in our district as junior firefighters at age 16 to 18. Now, I'm a retired school teacher in my town of South Kingstown. My last 18 years were in my local high school. I taught for over 30 years. I was the conduit of the junior firefighter program. I would have a yearbook picture. We'd bring over a different apparatus every year, which was always big competition, which station was going to get the yearbook that year.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we'd have 20, 25, 28 junior firefighters every year.
It's great.
For the 18 years that I was in South Kingstown High School. And that feeder program has carried us. Like I said, the chief officers, 4 out of 5 were junior firefighters.
Right.
So we had the conduit, we had a feeder system. When I retired, Jeremy, in 2007, the numbers of our juniors went down drastically.
I believe it. You were the champion of the program. You're the conduit. You said it.
You needed a conduit.
That's right.
I'm not tooting my horn. I just happened to be the right person and had that connection.
Well, when you have an unconditional love for something in the fire service, guys like you and I, we have this unconditional love for it,
right?
And it emanates from us. And people that are around, if you're a teacher, a banker, a mailman, an accountant, an attorney, wherever you work, if the fire service is super important to you, it just comes off of you. People get that aura. They sense it, and they want to be. People are always looking for something that is bigger than them. Right. And they're looking for fulfillment. I think fulfillment is one of the biggest things that we have to talk about when it comes to the volunteer fire service. And when you emanate that, when that just exudes out of you, of course students are infectious. It's infectious.
It resonates, and it's so rewarding. You know, I know, and that's the value of it all for an individual. So what we've done this past September, just a few months ago, we've been working with the school department, and we just instituted a firefighter 1-2 program in school, in the high school. We have an EMT class as well, and they get credit, and we have 18 new recruits from that class we started in September. So, we're getting all kinds of publicity for that on the local news stations and everything else, because that's a change in the model. That is, there wasn't a teacher that was a volunteer. We always looked for someone, but we couldn't get one. So we then went and worked with the school system and changed our model. And that is going to carry us for years. We also, I happen to be the grant writer for the district. We wrote a SAFER grant, and we were able to get near $700,000 to support that 4-year program.
Outstanding.
So that's what we're talking about, changing the models. We're talking about recruiting. We're talking about retention, and we're talking about replacing people like myself. We need to have different means and measures to kind of recruit differently. And I love listening to you about the generations, our next generations, our newer recruits that are coming up, and how they multitask, and how we, as veteran, I don't call us old, veteran firefighters, are able to work with their assets that they have. Or able to exchange ideas and work in complement and in concert together. And that's key.
We need to recognize the differences and then take those differences and figure out how to apply them to make them work for us today. But the issue is those veteran firefighters have to be willing to change. They have to be willing to adapt with the program. Something you said to me, a change in the model. I wrote that down. And I circled it on my notepad here, because too many people do not want to change, because when you change, it takes work.
Yeah.
And we're asking a lot of our people today, more than ever, we're doing more with less. And now we're talking about continuing a way to adapt to what we're where and what we need today. And that can become a lot, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, but those departments that are successful in the volunteer ranks,
That's right.
are those that are progressive. Number one, the new age recruit wants to train. They love training, and having effective and efficient and timely training is. You need a great training officer in your department, and it has to be robust and exciting. And I'll tell you, as a school teacher, retired school teacher, I have a lesson I teach to fire instructors, which I call ripping up the lesson plan, because death by PowerPoint doesn't work with today's new recruits.
That's right. That's right.
I heard you mention, where you judge yourself, your audience, where, when do those phones come out?
That's right.
If the phones are not out, they're engaged and you're engaged. So I know that fire instructors have to change the way we instruct so that we can attract the right individuals to propel the volunteer service to new heights. And that really is part of it. It's an overload and an overhaul of how we teach. And teaching and learning are key. And that I'm finding across the country is those progressive departments in the volunteer ranks especially are doing a lot more with training and connecting and making it student-focused, student-centered learning. And that's really, you want them to be asking those why questions and sharing and exchanging that dialogue. So,
well, it all makes sense, right? Because this conversation right now is circular, because we just came around to the beginning of what we were talking about. And the reason why is this younger generation needs direction. They want to understand what the expectations are, and they want that explained to them up front. They want organized training. They want timely training. They want to be active and busy to learn the craft. And the reason why this conversation has come back around to where we started 15, 20 minutes ago was very simply this. You talked about your culture in your fire department and putting out career firefighters. My volunteer department is very much the same. I just got a phone call yesterday for another kid that's getting hired in a career job. We put out career firefighters all the time. I am a firm believer that a culture of firemanship is what makes a very good volunteer fire department.
yeah.
If you put fire first and you double down on training and education and you set forth expectations, your people will come along, and they will come along times 10.
Yeah, and it's a confidence level, and the
Yes.
more that wrote with just muscle memory that's working because you just train so well. And when we look at our department, we want our people are the greatest asset. Our volunteers are our greatest. We have the best of the best in my town, and we're so thankful for the support the citizens give us. With that Class A burn building, a full training ground.
Sure.
We have great apparatus. We're rebuilding stations. Every year we're doing another station over. But we are so fortunate to have the support. But we also value our people more than anything. And that is even to the point where we want them to become career firefighters.
Right.
We held mock interviews in uniforms.
That's awesome.
For our firefighters prepare for those interviews with the career departments. We didn't do that. We don't do that anymore, because what was happening is we were losing our best officers.
Sure.
Career jobs. And these are live burn training instructors that we have molded and built, and they're great instructors with live fire. So we still encourage them to move on, but we don't do the mock interviews anymore.
Well, I can tell you this. It makes sense, right? When you truly believe, when your culture, when your fire department truly believes that your people are your number one asset, and you show them value, They want to go all in on who you are. They want to go all in on your service. And those departments a lot of departments say they value their people. A lot of departments say that our people are our number one assets, but they don't do any. That's where the rubber meets the road. For you to want your people to do bigger and better for themselves, not just for their fire service career, but for themselves as people. That is truly, truly following through on what your mission is.
At one time in Rhode Island, the 3 largest metro departments, all 3 of the fire chiefs at the same time were volunteers in the Union Fire District.
It's awesome.
You know, it's just,
yeah,
they just grew.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Again, it goes back to community support and an understanding of appreciating those volunteers. So let's take a jump to how did I get involved?
Let's go.
Because I think that's part of growing a volunteer department is why do people join? You know,
right.
You know, I happen to join because my wife and I, we've been high school sweethearts. So we got married. We were getting engaged and getting married in 1976. And at the same time, I said, I don't want to rent because I think renting kind of throwing money away every month.
Okay.
So we wanted to build our own house.
Sure.
Which is a pretty lofty goal for a 20-year-old. So we didn't have any money for down payment. We didn't have jobs, neither one of us. We were both in school. Yet we had resourcefulness and we had drive. So I went to one bank and borrowed $3,000. And I put that $3,000 down, this is 1976,
right,
on a $31,000 house, 10% down. And we built a house. Unfortunately, we had to rent for 2 months because the house wasn't quite ready. But we did that because we had the drive and the passion. Well, I built the house in South Kingstown, which I didn't know it was a volunteer fire department. My brother was a Providence firefighter in Rhode Island, career department. And my neighbor was the deputy chief of the volunteer fire department. And he, at dinner one night when we had just moved into the house, he said, listen, if you ever want to think about joining the volunteer department, we train on Sundays and Wednesday nights, so just come on by. Well, he planted that seed, and
sure.
Within 2 weeks, I went over and talked to Phil, and I filled out that application, and that was 48 plus years ago, and it was a blessing, Jeremy, for me. It changed my life. It changed my life to a point where it's hard for me to grasp and realize this journey I've been on. But the volunteer fire service has taken me across the world, literally. And it's because I filled that application out and took it serious. Now, I never wanted to be an officer because I was a school teacher and I wanted those kids that were inspiring to be career firefighters to take the officer positions. So I was one of those informal officers.
I get it. Yep.
And I stayed that way for a long time until the department finally made a 3rd lieutenant position to make me a lieutenant. And then after that, I did advance in the fire service. And I got to tell you, as a school teacher in the 1970s, I happened to be, when I got into the department in October, and in January were our annual elections. Now, I've only been there for 3 months. They voted me in as the secretary treasurer because I'm a school teacher.
Right,
okay?
right.
I am taking minutes in our fire company meeting on a laptop computer. It was one of the original.
And what year? What year was that?
In the late 70s.
Holy
78.
moly.
77. Big laptop. I still have it. It's a honking piece of equipment. But that laptop computer moved me in the fire service. I didn't realize it, but a year after I was in the department, my captain came to me and said, "We're having a meeting in Newport for the state. I want you to come over. It's a free dinner." Free dinner. The captain's asked me. I'm a young kid. I said, I'm going. Well,
Yeah.
I go over 2 bridges, and I come back, and I'm elected as the secretary treasurer for the Rhode Island State Firefighters. It was Firemen's League.
Right.
So now I'm the secretary treasurer for the state. 2 years later, NVFC is formed, and I am voted in as a board of director for the National Volunteer Fire Council, which I've served for over 45 years as a board member of the NVFC because of a laptop computer.
Wild.
And I had no idea what NVFC stood for when I was elected, but I've come to learn so much about the organization. The NVFC is the voice of the volunteer. The voice of the volunteer. And our resources extend far beyond anything I ever imagined I'd see in the 45 plus years I've been involved with them. Our education, Jeremy, is
Yes,
the
sir.
best out there. Our emerging technologies, our lithium-ion battery courses, our EV courses, these are things that people are dying to have these courses. Our hazmat courses that we're delivering in person and online. Our education is bar none some of the best that's out there. Our helpline for volunteers and their families, 24-hour helpline, is a resource that's there because sometimes our folks struggle with some of the things we've been through, and their families as well. But our resources, our AD&D policies, and our giveaways and our fire grants, and being able to help departments write FEMA grants, AFG, safer fire prevention. Those resources are beyond what I ever imagined we would grow to. I don't know if you're familiar with the OSHA regulations that's going on right now.
Oh, yeah. 2025 is going to be an interesting year.
Yeah, we have been. Well, I guess it's been 10 months of straight out onward every week. We're working to make sure that we protect the volunteer fire service and work within safety guidelines, but not crippling them financially. So,
Right.
But anyway, the NVFC has really been just a powerful voice of the volunteer. The legislation work we've done, and we work so well with the IAFF, the IAFC, the NFFF, all the major national organizations. We are so connected with them, and that's where I have been blessed personally to be able to represent the volunteers and be at those tables with those influences that make policy and everything else. So my application 49 years ago really has taken me to some. I have the best friends, brothers and sisters in the fire service across the world, literally. I just this year was the incident commander for 24 teams of search and rescue based on earthquake scenarios, and 16 nations in Europe, mostly European nations. But those team leaders, those supervisors, they are just such great friends, and the fire service has done that for me. And, I just can't put anything.
I'm with you. I'm with you. What the volunteer fire service has done for me, it's made me who I am. Mm-hmm. It's done so much for me, and that is only going to happen when you allow yourself to be a part of it. You have to give yourself to it and trust that it's going to take care of you. Yeah. And I think this is a big conversation here, because a lot of people are in it for their own needs today. When you came in 49 years ago, I came in 30 years ago. I grew up, I shared this earlier with you. I grew up in a civic-minded home. My father was a councilman, mayor, fireman for over 50 years. I grew up in a house where it was expected of us to give back to the community. And it's very different than for a lot of the reasons today. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just different. And we have to be cognizant of that. But what we have to do is educate those today that this is not about them. This is so much bigger than them, and they have to be willing to give themselves to the process. They have to trust in the process. The only problem is when you and I came up through the process, there were people there to support us, people there to guide us, and people there to put us on the right path. Yeah. Today, we're lacking some focus and direction in our volunteer firehouses. And those people are getting dismayed by the process. They're being let down by the process. The process isn't giving them what it gave you and what it gave me. And so what we have to do is, how do we focus? Where does the attention have to go to be able to get back to a place where the process and the volunteer fire service is not going to let our people down? We have to double down on our people and give them the experience that you and I had.
I think when you look at the mentoring that you and I received from so many different individuals that came before us, I think rather than the veteran firefighters getting dismayed, they are the key to be able to bridge your gap, as you say, to be able to share that knowledge in a genuine way, in an appreciation way. So that means that sharing of knowledge at both ends, the younger recruits coming in and those veteran firefighters that you called warriors at one point, they are key to be able to mentor these individuals. And we're losing that piece. I see that across the nation as well. We are losing that.
Mentorship is super important, but here, to me, we always talk about the senior man. We talk about the importance of mentorship, right? I agree with you 100%. However, there's the other side of mentorship that nobody ever talks about. Are you willing to be mentored? Are you willing to open yourself up to be, are you willing to expose yourself, your deficiencies? Are you willing to admit you don't know something, to allow somebody to step in and help, allow somebody to come in and mentor? You have to be willing to be mentored in order to get mentored. And that's the other side of it too, Chief.
I think it comes down to training, Jeremy. And we did an experiment in my district a while ago. We built a mentorship program, and we trained the mentors and we trained the mentees. And I happen to be a mentor to two of our new recruits. And one of them I did by the book, the way the training said to do. And the other, I just kind of like laissez-faire kind of.
You felt the room.
And the one that I stuck by the book in the curriculum is still a member with us 20 years later, I'm thinking, maybe 18 years later. The one that I was laissez-faire on probably disappeared in less than a year.
Yeah.
So we have to, it's a training of everything we do. You're bridging the gap program. You need to build a training piece in there to how do we get them to open up and share and then blossom. So I think everything we do comes down to training. No matter, and it may be, our line officers, we train them well on the fire ground. We train them well. Probably they're thrown into the fire pretty quickly, but we will get them up to speed. But we don't train them how to manage people.
Right.
And that's training issue. And it's something that we have to kind of instill and build into our line officers as well. So everything we do, if we look at it through a training, binoculars, we could probably make things better. So whatever that program is, I always come back to training, because when you train, you get it right. So it could be people managing, it could be anything that you find in a system that's not working. And I agree, the systems are not working. That's why I talked about changing the model. Being able to look through a different lens and being able to make changes, not for change's sake, but for the right reasons, and it means the buy-in has to be there. You have to have that, you have to gather that input from all folks at the high end, at the low end, the new recruits, those that are not even recruits yet. You need to use it. And we've learned so much about data in the fire service. We never used data 15 years ago. We're all about data right now. So collecting data is critical. And the NVFC did research about 7 years ago now And they found that young people want to volunteer, and young people want to volunteer in fire departments. The research shows us that. But we also have to look at what we talked about a little while ago about making sure that we're being efficient, we're being progressive, we've got excitement, motivation, because the world is so competitive, and they have the liberty to go somewhere else on a flash. I look at the portals with these college, sports, the players. There's no loyalty to UNC or anywhere else. They have that portal. They could be in 4 different schools and play for 6 years. I don't agree with the portal, but sometimes we have the same thing in the fire service where
I agree.
folks can leave. They could jump ship at any moment for any reason.
And I think that is a big flaw within where we are right now, because as soon as somebody comes up against some adversity, as soon as somebody comes up against somebody they don't like in their fire company, they're jumping ship and going to another fire company. I'll share a story with you. Just recently, we had a kid from a adjoining town looking to join our department. And I knew him, and I said, "What's the story?" I said, "Just like that? I mean, you haven't been there that long, and now you want to come join our department." And I that causes tremendous pause for me, because there's something misfiring here. There's something off. And I don't want somebody else's problem. And 2, we have, if you're going to do it, we expect you to do it. And we're not, I don't want to share you. I need to bring you here, and I want to make you part of our family. But I got to have loyalty. Like, we need to have that. You need to be, you need to have loyalty to where you ride, your company, your department. You need to show some loyalty there, because that comes through in the type of work ethic you have, who you are as an individual, what you're willing to do for the company and department. And in return, we're going to do everything we can for you to support that. I want the most out of you, and we're going to do everything we can. And there are times that we let our people down. There's no doubt. We're not perfect, right? But it's a family. And when you talk about family, we hurt family members sometimes. There's tears, and then there's laughter, right? It's a give and take, if you will. But, man, I want my people to be all in. And I agree with you, Chief. We need loyalty in this fire service.
Yeah.
Loyalty in life these days is just, I don't know where it's going. I don't know why everybody's walking with their heads down and not with their heads up.
Yeah.
We need to do a better job at being loyal and protective. That's what we want.
Your department has to be a place where people want to be members with. They want to be there, and they feel that need to be there. And that's the loyalty comes because of the confidence and it is a culture. It's a culture. It's a good culture. And what I found is when I traveled across the country teaching, I found that tradition and some of those things, and I'm going to just talk about bylaws for a moment.
Sure.
Okay, bylaws kill the volunteer fire service, because to change bylaws is like, for some people it's like an act of God, and it shouldn't be. The bylaws are important. It is how you live and die by your bylaws. But what we did in my district is we eliminated any kinds of limitations, and we didn't care where you lived. You could live in another state, as long as, number one, you trained with us, because that's all the critical piece. You have to be ready to be on the line. And number two, you did duty shifts with us. We started out with daytime duty shifts. And from the first engine we ever put on as a duty shift, that's probably going on almost 20 years now. That engine, the first day, was on duty shift quarter fire, and we felt so good about that. We had minimum of 4 on that engine, and they responded. Well, since that first night, or first day we had shifts, we have expanded our duty shifts to, we're now 24-hour shifts, 365. We have 8 stations, and our station members, they intermingle and intertwine. Whichever station's on duty, they go to that station. So we've got great morale across our 8 stations, which was always, a little bit of flack between.
Of course.
But now they're working together, on the same shifts. So we have full coverage 24 hours a day. That's when I talked about changing the model. We don't care if they live 30 miles away from us, but as long as they train with us and they're there for duty shifts, we don't care if they give us 2 shifts a month. It's providing protection to our community every day, every night, 365 days a year. And that's a great volunteer system. And it's working greatly. So
Yeah.
changing the model works. But that gives us the loyalty.
Yeah.
These guys and gals that are on shift, it is so great to see them on shift. They train together on shift. They do all kinds of things together, and it makes it unified. And the Union Fire District really is at a great place because of the duty shifts.
Well, let me ask you this. I want to circle back just a little bit. We talked about the formation of the National Volunteer Fire Council early on in your career, and you've been a longstanding member, and I think you've probably held every position within the organization, I'm sure. But my point is this. I've been around for 30 years. I've heard of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about it.
Let me give you structure.
How do we educate people? Because we need to share the word, and we need to understand the value of an organization like that. And for myself, I'm an ex-chief. Yeah. I'm an ex-officer, and now, now I run a podcast and social media platform in the American Fire Service. And to be honest with you, I don't know anything about this organization, and so I have to think there's some misfire in how we're communicating the message and what the National Volunteer Fire Council stands for and what they do. Because if I don't know, I can guarantee you a lot of people don't know.
We know that. Let me give you the structure.
Please.
You are probably a member, or of the New Jersey. You're in New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir.
New Jersey State Firefighters Association?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Of course. Quickly, of course. I could probably say that to any firefighter,
right,
volunteer, or whatever career in any state. So our structure is every state organization, with the exception of Hawaii right now, is a member of the NVFC. Okay. They are the board of directors. 2 of your firefighters from New Jersey State Association, Brian Foley and George Hefney, are your representatives that sit on our board. Now, some states have great communication of the work that the NVFC does down through the state association, down to the fire departments and the locals. Some states are great. Other states are okay, and some need improvement. Okay, so that's kind of like the floor, the breakdown, where our board of directors, we meet twice a year, a spring and a fall board meeting. And that information during those meetings has to come down through the state associations. And that's where the push is for membership. Now, I don't have the numbers, but across the nation, we've got some really, really strong states, and we've got some very weak states in terms of membership in the NVFC.
I get it.
We by our bylaws, are structured to the point where New Jersey and every other state tell us who your representatives will be. We don't have any say in who New Jersey's sending or who Rhode Island's sending or whatever. So those are our representatives that are board members, and they sit and they make policy and they make all these decisions. We do have a staff at the NVFC of 11 people that run the day in and day out operations. And
where are they based out of?
Well, our address is Washington, D.C., but we were in Greenbelt. But when COVID hit, we actually don't even have an office right now. We got rid of the brick and mortar because of when COVID hit. So We're not even, but our base is in Washington, D.C. Our employees, most of them are in the Virginia, D.C. area, the metro area. So we do have some remote that are working elsewhere.
Yeah.
We have committees that do the essential work, much like the IFC has, I'm the chairman right now of the Health, Safety, and Training Committee, and we do an awful lot of work with the other organizations as well. In fact, I could kind of give you a quick summary of one of the Health, Safety, Training Committee, a success story that we had. We've had a number, but the Lavender Ribbon Report, are you familiar with that?
The what? I'm sorry?
Lavender Ribbon Report
No.
on cancer. You're not
No.
familiar with that? It's a great resource. In fact, the scientists, as I said earlier, we do a lot more with data now, working a lot with research and scientists, and learning more about cancer in the fire service. But they promote the Lavender Ribbon Report everywhere I go. I see that. So it's a resource that we put together. It's 11 best practices built and designed for volunteer fire service. Shower within the hour. You've probably heard that, right?
Yeah.
Shower within the hour. That's one of them, one of the 11 things. It's a cost-effective measure of how to reduce cancer exposures in the fire service. So, some of these resources we put out, the family expectations, because it is a family affair when you have a firefighter join a volunteer fire department. So our resources go on and on and on. Excuse me, let me just get a drink.
Sure.
But our breakdowns, it's just like the NFFF, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
Right.
People don't know who the NFFF is that are in the fire service. They might know the 16 life safety initiatives, but then again, I bet you there's a number of departments in the country that have never heard of those.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
The IFC has the same issues. The only ones that if you're paying the union dues, you remember the IAFF.
But how do we get the message out? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
What are we doing about that?
We have to strengthen our state associations. We have to strengthen them. And I don't know how we do that because I don't know enough about New Jersey's or Idaho's or Maine's.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And this is coming with sincerity behind it, but your own words change the model.
Yeah.
The state associations are seeing less participation these days, right? A lot of these young kids don't know what associations are or
Right.
nor even understand, like in New Jersey, the death benefit that we get and a lot of the other programs that are
Your
afforded to us.
Firefighters home that you have in New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
There's
Absolutely.
only two in the country, New York and New Jersey.
That's correct. Absolutely. And we're incredibly fortunate to have a strong association. But I can tell you the young kids in my firehouse don't know anything about it, right? They don't even know that they're allowed to have any of these opportunities afforded to them. My point is this, and Chief, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but we need to change the model. Today the NVFC can take it direct to their consumers. They don't need to work through the state associations. You guys have the ability to deliver these strong initiatives and projects and committees and results and playbooks and ideas and PDFs. I mean, I'm on the website right now and I'm looking at all these great resources that are here. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I never knew this was here up until a couple months ago. But I think today the NVFC has the opportunity to educate the state association's great. But let's go educate firefighters. And let's do that in a direct, because then you can control the narrative. You know the delivery. You know how to express and deliver the content and the resources that are available through such a wonderful organization. And I want to challenge you a little bit tonight on that. I think that there's more work that can be done from the MVFC to deliver direct to the younger generation.
That's why your medium is a critical piece, Jeremy, because you are the voice of so many that follow you in the National Fire podcast. So I think we have to kind of follow up, you and I.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Maybe move something to bridge this gap, as you say.
Touche, Chief, touche.
Bridging the gap is part of it as well, because to be quite honest, I have to fight in my own district.
I'm sure you do.
And for lots of things, but one of them is, let's just look at death benefits, widow benefits.
Right.
that the younger kids don't know anything about.
That's right.
And even those that have been around for 20 years don't know about what
right.
New Jersey has available, what Rhode Island has available. And I have to, every time there's a death, whether it's not a line of duty death, but a death, and in Rhode Island we have state law that volunteers are covered as well as careers on, pulmonary cancer, cardiac, and respiratory. If it's that, then there's a widow benefit. It's $300 a month in Rhode Island. Well, $300 a month to some of these widows pays their taxes.
It's a lot of bill. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
In their houses.
Yep. That's right.
It keeps them in their houses. But our people don't know about it, and I have to be the one to fight. Well, I remember that third R, replacing.
Yes.
Someone's got to be there. So I think the media and the medium is key, and changing the model is what we have to do in so many ways. So I think we can have some follow-up conversation and work on this bridging the gap and expand it so that we can protect firefighters and their families, especially in the volunteer ranks. So
there's so much there, and I would welcome that challenge in a heartbeat, and I look forward to that. And I started this off. I don't think I hit record yet when I said it to you, but one of the biggest things that I wanted to come from tonight with you and I getting to know each other on this episode was I want to become more involved in delivering solid information to volunteer firefighters. And if that becomes part of the mission of what we're doing here, then that's important to me. And in organizations, well-respected organizations like the National Volunteer Fire Council, I can guarantee you a lot of people that are listening to this podcast don't even know anything about this organization.
No.
So we do have work to do there for sure. The other thing I wanted to mention to you too is it's not I love where you took it about protecting our people, protecting our families, right? All of that. But it's also the other aspect of it, too, is departments that are looking for help. This organization needs to be able to share the ideas, the things that are successful, the success stories. What I titled to you earlier, the playbook. Right. Where's the playbook? Let's put a playbook together. Let's get information shared between fire companies all over the country about what works, what doesn't work, because there's no reason for volunteer fire companies to spin their wheels on programs that probably won't work if somebody else has done it already. Let's focus on things that are success stories in other parts of the country, and how do we implement them at home? And I think that is a win for the volunteer fire service.
And I have seen so many best practices.
Yes.
And it may or may not work in your district, but to see them and then how do you tweak them to make them work?
That's right.
Depending upon where your challenges are. So I think it's critical. I do want to share my personal story, because I am considered the poster child for firefighter physicals.
Okay. Talk about it.
When I was the chairman of the NVFC, my Health, Safety, and Training Committee came to me and they wanted to do something about line of duty deaths. And they looked at the root causes. And at the time, we had a lot of personally owned vehicle tragedies. Mostly young males driving to a scene or from a scene too fast, rolling their cars, no seat belts back then. This goes back about 12 years. And we worked with the IAFC, Combination Volunteer Officers Section, and we put out a campaign on personally owned vehicles and reducing those number of deaths. And we did a big campaign. The committee came back with data. The trends were way down, and can't say that that's why we reduced those line of duty deaths, but they did come down. My committee was so grateful for the results. They came to me again and they asked permission that they wanted to look at another root cause of line of duty deaths. At the time, cardiacs was the largest percentage, over 50% at the time, and they wanted to do something about that. Well, I gave them the blessing. I said, I'm thinking, what can they possibly do? But go for it. So they worked on firefighter physicals, recommendations, and they wanted to say all firefighters, doesn't matter if you're career, volunteer, combination, defense, all firefighters should have an annual physical. Now, in theory, that's great advice. But some departments have an $8,000 budget, and that's for their fuel and insurance
Yeah.
and everything else. How do you fit physicals into that?
That's
So
right.
the committee worked on, the gold standard NFPA's, recommendation, and then they had a modified NFPA physical, and then they had a Department of Transportation physical, and then
Right.
they had Obamacare just come out, and then they had the Obamacare. So at least go to a doctor. So they had these 4 tiers, and one of my board members at the time out of Cherryville, North Carolina, Jeff Cash, he wanted me to come down to his department and participate with his department in their physicals because they had a great company that was doing a modified NFPA physical, and it was reasonably priced. So I flew down there it was in the summer. I live in Rhode Island, so the 10 weeks in the summer in Rhode Island are the best weeks we get. But I didn't want to go, but he convinced me. I went down on a Sunday night, flew in, participated in the physical on Monday morning, 8 o'clock, and was flying home in the afternoon on Monday. I participated. I brought one of my staff members down, and Jeff turned his training room into 7 or 8 different stations. They put us through, a treadmill, and they put us through blood work and everything else. Well, after that physical, Dave and I participated, and we went in and spoke with his medical officers, the doctors, the president, the vice president of this company, and it had this little powwow meeting. I'm in there about 15 minutes, and there's a knock on the door, and the doctor who just gave me my physical wants to see me in the hallway.
Yeah.
I step out in the hallway, and we were in the apparatus bay, and I'm leaning against a rescue. He's got my EKG strip out, and he said, I'm really concerned about this dip here in the QRS. And I said, well, Doc, is it enough that Jeff should transport me in this rescue right here? And he said, no, and I discounted everything he said, Jeremy, because I knew I felt fine.
Sure.
He said, no, and I went back into the meeting because that's the kind of person I am.
I get it.
Work to do. Well, he's being paid by this company. He wasn't comfortable. He knocks on the door again. He asked the president of the company to step out there, where they definitely, beat up on my HIPAA laws, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
And then I step out with them, and Charles Turner, who's the owner of the company, said, Kevin, I've read over 300,000 of these strips, and you're going to need a stent or 2 in your heart. He got my attention. He got my attention.
Right.
And I then said, well, can we send these results to my wife? She works in a hospital. I want a cardiologist to read it. Within an hour of me being on that treadmill, a cardiologist back here read it. And he said, well, I don't know about the stents, but we definitely need to do further testing. Well, Jeremy, I ended up having quadruple bypass surgery from that firefighter physical.
Yeah.
So we talk about doing things for our people. That firefighter physical, shower within the hour, make sure you're wearing your full PPE on air during overhaul.
Yeah.
All of these things really come around to valuing our volunteers, valuing the fire service, and appreciating what we have and giving them the tools to make their job successful, to help those people in our communities day in and day out. So, it's just, I am here because of the fire service, literally.
I get it.
Saved my life.
I get it.
I had a goal to be on an air pack in 2 months after the open heart surgery.
Right.
I had 3 doctors sign off approving that. The 4th one said no because I had a commercial driver's license, and that protocol says 3 months.
Oh,
3 months to the day I was on an air pack.
There you go.
I do have to tell you my air pack story. You've been around a long time in the fire service. When I started out, we rode the back step, the tailboard. You kind of missed those days, I think.
No, I caught the very, very tail end.
Okay.
Very tail end. But I got probably 5 months of it, and that was it.
Oh, good, because that's a safety measure. But anyway, we didn't have air packs when I started. Did you have air packs when you
Oh
started?
yeah.
When I started, there were no air packs. Well, I got to tell you, at the time we had 6 stations, and the chief received 12 air packs. They were Scott brand, Scott air packs in the black cases, and he
Right.
put 2 packs on each of the apparatus floors, and never said anything. There was no training, and a couple of weeks later, he comes back to our station, and he's upset with the captain because they're not on the trucks. They're just right where he left them. So the captain said, well, you got to have some training to go with this. Well, I remember him saying to me, make some room in Engine 5's rear compartment, put them on the truck. Me and another kid made room, put them there. They sat there for months
Sure.
without the training in the compartments, in the black cases. Finally, the training comes in. Well, my captain was a stickler for training.
Right.
Very good, great captain. And he said, when you use a cylinder, document the date, what it's for, and that's when you burn air. So I started that from day one. I continue to teach at Teaks in Texas.
Right.
I have limited air packs that I'm using today, but as of today, my count on cylinders in an IDLH, immediately dangerous to life, and
Yeah.
I have had 6,969 bottles, cylinders that I've burned. That would probably, it equates to a half of year of
There you
my
go.
life in an IDLH.
Yeah.
And then if you take just the time that you're wearing a pack and not burning air, I've probably been on a pack a year of my life.
It's wild.
It is
It's wild.
It's been a great experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's changed my life and the appreciation. And now I have the love of teaching, the love of educating as a fire instructor, and bringing great training to new people, and excitement and the protection of our community. When the tone drops, it's great to know that we're going to be there.
Yeah, well, I will tell you this. The conversation tonight's been wonderful with you. And, I'm sitting here thinking about a 50-year guy, and his heart and love for the fire service is bigger than it's ever been. And yet you continue to innovate and connect and make a difference.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is super important. Is you talk about recruit, retention, replacement. It is very hard for us to replace the shoes of those that have come before us. And I see it in my own fire department. I see when some of these older guys pass, or they finally retire and move on, and they move down to Florida or something like that. It is a tremendous void that shows itself in our department, and it's very hard to replace them. And so replacement, I'm so grateful that you entered that into my thinking tonight. I never heard it put that way before, and I'm grateful that you came up with that, because I've been thinking a lot about that, and I just think about what that looks like. And I don't even mean just in our fire companies, but we're talking about the National Volunteer Fire Council. We're talking about the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. We're talking about all these different organizations that I have to believe are trending older as well. And you're not finding youth coming into these organizations. And so
we are seeing the change, Jeremy. We're seeing that change. And I'll use the NFFF as an example. NFFF has an emerging leaders section that they are bringing in the youth.
Good.
And Chris Koretsky is one of those that's been on that program for
Great.
maybe 4 years. So we've recognized that we have to have that succession plan.
Yeah, no
And the
doubt.
NFFF is working on that. NVFC also. If I look at my board today, I'm excited about it because
That's good.
the youth that's there.
That's good.
It's not as young as I'd like it to be. As NFFF's is very young. I love that, their model. But We need to look at succession planning. And I wrote the article in Firehouse about recruitment, retention, and replacing. But I'm glad that you've got this on your radar, because when you're bridging the gap, that really, I'm going to give you a number. I've got some stats here. Let me just jump to this page a second.
Yeah.
First of all, populations in the United States of 2,500 people or less is half the country.
Is that right?
Think about that. 2,500 people or less.
Small town USA.
Yeah, that's really where we're at. I've got the exact numbers on that, but on that under 2,500, 34% of them are age 50 and up.
Right.
That's half of America.
That's right.
So we're talking 10 years. If we don't replace in 10 years, we're really up against the current.
100%.
You know, so that replacement to me is the biggest piece. But as I said earlier, an hour ago, if you retain your people, you will not have a recruitment issue.
I agree.
You know, and that's really, it's leadership, it's appreciation, valuing, and being able to do all the right things. And like we talked about, changing the model. What is it that you have to do? You know, and so many times you might have to change your bylaws to change the model. But we can make this happen. 65% of this country are all volunteers out of all the firefighters. It's not going to, it can't be replaced. It cannot be replaced. Economically, it's not feasible to replace 65% of the country. But we do have to fix it. I'll admit, challenges are here, but solutions are also on the rise.
Yeah.
And those best practices that you talked about, we have them, but we don't actually have that playbook that we could give out to X, Y, and Z, VFD.
Well, I think in something I would like to get involved with, if you'd entertain it, and we can talk about this certainly at length, but
Yeah.
I'd love to see where I can help facilitate that playbook
Yeah.
in conjunction with the NVFC.
Yeah, I think your media and your following, those are the people that I need to connect with.
Yeah.
So that we can listen to those people. You know, what forum do you have that you get feedback from them? Do you get feedback from them?
All day, every day.
Yeah.
I get more messages and comments, and you know, it is a full-time job managing the communication that comes with this. But I knew that when we started this, that, you know, when we built the community that we've built, a trusted name in the American Fire Service, along with that, you know, you become a leader in that space. And when you do, people are going to be reaching out. And I tried to answer every single email, text, direct message, instant message that comes across. Yeah. And it literally is a full-time job. However, it shows me that people are starving for information. And what's really funny about that, in a way, is today there's more information than ever before. It's the problem is a lot of it is white noise. Okay. And what we need to do in the volunteer fire service, where we are stretched for personnel and our own time, we then need to capitalize on what's most important and to give those resources immediately up front. Get the fluff out of the way, get the nonsense out of the way, and we're going to tell you and show you this is a blueprint, this is a model, this works, this has been tried, it doesn't work. There are things here that we can help you expedite anything you're looking for in this American Fire Service. It's been done. It's been done.
Yeah.
Let's share that with each other. Let's create a network where we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's create a network where we can share all the things that have been so good for us, or so good for companies and fire departments across the country that are working for their success. Let's share those stories.
We have a benefit for our members called Volunteer Voices, and that's exactly what that is. It's a shared network where if I've got a question or I need something or an idea, I jump on and the membership just jump all over it and share.
Where is that?
It's on our website, Volunteer Voices, and that's I think we need one that's open to non-members because we need to hear the voice of those firefighters that are across this nation, and every one of them has some great wealth to give information, but they also can find information as well. So we do have Volunteer Voices, which works really well, and we're very proud of that. As it's part of the.
Well, I'm looking at that right now. I mean, it was as active as 6 hours ago. Thanks, Chief. That was exactly my goal. Sometimes a simple question sparks thinking on a topic as a whole. So, I mean, there's information here. There's resources available. We need to. Oh, it wants me to sign into my account. Well, listen, I am going to create an account, and I want to become more active in understanding the resources that are available. And I think that through this conversation tonight, Chief, that is the real message here, is we have to start educating people about where the resources are and that things are being done. And I promise you, if you're seeking or looking for something, it's probably already there. You just don't know where to find it.
Yeah, I think, tonight has a great opportunity for me personally, but for the NVFC through your medium to be able to reach out. And I think the solutions are there. We just have to work together. And I guess it's in connecting. That's the whole key, is connecting.
100%.
But if we go back to, where we started, we certainly could set the record straight. And I'm here as a resource. Again, nvfc.org is our website. I can be reached through that website. My email and my cell phone are on that website. So I'm ready and available, and I've still got a good punch in me to share and be able to make a difference. That's what we do, Jeremy. We make a difference. We make a difference in people's lives, and we serve our communities. And we're proud to do it. And you know what else we are? We're professional. We're professional.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on everything you just said. Man, what a fun conversation tonight, Chief. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm so glad that Chris passed along your information to me. And in fact, now that I know a little bit more about him, I'm going to be calling him and knocking on his door to come join me here too. I'm sure he's got a lot to share.
I'm telling you, he came to me when I was at the high school, and he wanted to do a extrication class over at his high school.
Yeah.
Because he wanted our Jaws of Life there, and he was bringing in a helicopter. He was a 17-year-old kid at the time, and he did this for the SAD, Students Against Drunk Driving. And I have got to tell you, I am so proud of what he's done. He's a career firefighter in the Cape and assistant chief down in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. He's involved with our last team, local assistant state team. He is probably the best funeral planner for firefighters I've ever seen in my life at such a young age, and just is a master of the fire service. He's gonna up and coming leader. He's going to go a long way in this career, and he will be top. He'll be in those upper circles by the time he's in his mid 30s and 40s.
Awesome.
Incredible.
Very, very cool.
I'm very proud of him. So
yeah, well, he's a gentleman for sure, and very thorough. So I'll certainly I'm grateful for the connection that he made between us. So
and
thank you.
He's doing a class in our high school for our new recruits, and he's doing it about non-fireground. You mentioned the associations and all those other things, those components that our young firefighters don't know anything about. Benefits and things like that are out there for them. And he's doing a class on that, so he's just developing the class now, but he's an up-and-coming emerging leader in the fire service and a great friend, and I'm proud to say I remember bringing him into the training ground and teaching him how to be a fire instructor. And he's a state fire instructor now. He's a great instructor, but I remember teaching him as a young kid, putting him in that first level 1 fire. It's it's great to see the growth, and I love live fire. I love live fire. I love teaching live fire, and working with just all of our tools. We have been blessed in my district to teach firefighters from all over the world. They come to our district, and we put them in. And I remember one girl out of Greece. She was claustrophobic, and we had to get her on SCBA. I had her in a locker without any SCBA, but put her in a locker and left her in a dark locker, started her out that way. And then I ended up, we had a radio broadcast we had to do, and she was the PIO. And I had her on air as we drove down to the radio station in the car. And while we're there, she still had to be on air, and then back home on air. But right now, she's a great firefighter in Greece. Her SCBA skill sets are wonderful. She overcame that claustrophobia and has excelled now, and one
awesome.
of the great leaders in Greece, in the volunteer fire service over there. So
that's great.
The experiences I've had, the friendships I've made through the volunteer fire service is just phenomenal, and I owe it all to my friend Phil Howley, who's now deceased. But I can't say enough about the journey, and I look forward to the rest of the journey that goes on.
Of course. Absolutely.
And it's a
long road ahead, Chief.
Pleasure
long road
to
ahead.
meet you. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here, sir. Thank you very much for joining me. Before you go, don't go anywhere, okay? Stay right where you are. Everybody listening, check out the National Volunteer Fire Council at NVFC.org is where you can find more information. It is a comprehensive website with a lot of resources available for you. $21 this year will get you in as a member, which will open the door to an unlimited amount of opportunities and benefits that you can get through the NVFC. Chief, thank you. Kevin Quinn, thank you so much, Chief, for joining me tonight. It was an absolute pleasure. And I will tell you this, 50 years into fire, or almost 50 years going into fire service, Chief, we need guys like you because you're still infectious. Young kids look to you. They see the fun you're having. And I'm telling you right now, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And you've been having fun the whole way, the whole road, pal.
Jeremy, you're making a difference. Thank you very much.
No, that's very kind. Thank you. Good. Right. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the show. I'll come right back to you, okay? Don't go anywhere. Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Deputy Chief Kevin Quinn out of Rhode Island. Guys, what a career. What a career. And I love meeting people that are so passionate and in love with the fire service. So do me a favor. As I say at the end of every episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. I'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.